Hi everyone, this video is about the making of the wee house, the garden room that I built last year at the bottom of our garden. This video is coming to you from the wee house. This is it. That's what it looks like inside. I've already been enjoying it for quite a while. I'm looking forward to the summer. I think it's going to be even better, but it's usable all year. So I built this for less than £4,000, including the patio. So yeah, I just wanted to share how I'd done it, and I can post more information if people are interested. But I always run through the steps and all the things that I did, and the design features I suppose that I picked, because there's an awful lot out there about how you could do this. So this is how I've done. This is where we started. So there was a couple of old concrete plinths that had got quite heavily broken up by these two large trees at the back of the garden, and so yeah, I considered building on them, but I just felt like it wasn't going to be a good strategy. They were all uneven, as I mean, it's going to happen eventually, probably to this building. And so yeah, basically, I bought a breaker, second-hand breaker on the right there, and electric breaker, and that was really made it fairly easy to break it all up. The challenge really was much more moving it and all the work associated with that. But there's two big plinths there which had to be broken up. Once they've broken up the plinths, then it looks like a lot of rubble. So then I'm thinking, well, do I use the rubble as hardcore to base the building on, or do I use aggregate, or do I buy aggregate, which is then the kind of the finer stuff? So in the end, I decided, with the help of my son Eshin there, just to chuck all that that kind of the old chunky kind of rubble, and then we needed a skip. So then you've got to buy got to hire a skip. So that takes a lot of work. And then we moved all that with my friend Nick there. We moved all that rubble into the skip, which really basically cleared the site. The next stage then is that you need aggregate, which is the dark grey stuff, MOT type 1. So it needed more aggregate, because then you've excavated out all the rubble. So I started off with little bags, but it very quickly became obvious I needed ton bags, so you have to get those delivered. So a bit of help there again on the raking. So that's then what it looks like whacked down. So I kind of marked out the size, this 11-foot by 8-foot footprint, which is obviously a non-standard size. If you buy one, they typically come 8-foot by 10-foot, 8-foot by 12-foot. But the right size I felt for the space was 11-foot by 8-foot. Of course, when you're building it yourself, you can make it the size you want. So that's it, all with the MOT Type 1 aggregate in there, whacked down with a whacker plate, which did make a lot of difference. I managed to borrow a petrol-driven whacker plate to get the compaction in the aggregate for the base. And then I decided to do a slabs base, mainly because it was going to be quite a bit cheaper. And I'd never poured concrete in big scale before. I did get a use of cement mixer later, so I could have considered it, but I also just felt like it might be more resilient against the trees, roots. So anyway, I went for the slab base, and I picked them up, second hand, of course, standard kind of 2-foot by 2-foot slabs, and then I got, really this is a 2-person job. I mean, it took all day to lay the slabs with help from my dad there, who was mixing the cement or the mortar as I was then doing the laying. So I mean, again, I can post more information about the mixes of cement and sand, etc. But that's how we did it. So that's then at the end of the day, that's where we got to. So with the cement, with the mortar, and then with the slabs, I thought it looked like a dance floor. And then that was the next day, then putting the grout in between the slabs, and then kind of just finishing the edges to try and kind of seal it. So this is all just like a bit higher than the grade, or the sort of the ground level. And the idea being that you don't that's kind of going to keep the thing up out of the moisture. Then I was at the same time then trying to buy stuff on eBay, basically to try to particularly the windows and the doors. And the idea was once I had the windows and the doors, then I would design it around those, because basically I wanted second-hand ones. I think these were about £300 second-hand on eBay for a set of double-glazed patio doors. So then once I had that, and I had them, and once you've got them, then obviously you can measure them up, and you can be quite confident what size they are. So then the next step was laying out the floor. This is I used treated timber throughout, and I think this is 3x2 for the floors. So I laid this all out. I already had the insulation, you can see there in the back left. So I kind of sized the gap so that the insulation would just drop in. So that was, this is then the frame for the floor. So it's kind of like a raft, effectively. Yeah, so that's the Finlay Nation and testing it out there. It's all screwed together. I went for a screwed construction. I think that everything was pulled tighter, and I got some pretty decent screws, which then have that really pull tight kind of effect. And those little tabs you can see are put, and they were sort of leftovers I got from doing the vents. So if you can see the vents along the right hand side, then basically the bits that I kind of chopped out with a chisel, then those are the tabs. And those tabs are there basically to stop the insulation from falling down to the ground later on. So they're going to keep it up off the ground. I mean, you can spend money on tabs like that, or you can just make those little wooden ones. So then I flipped the whole thing over and painted the bottom with bituminous paint. So this is a very a paint that was designed to kind of protect wood from moisture. I didn't end up putting in a membrane underneath it, and so that's quite an important decision, which probably some people will disagree with. But I didn't feel it the right thing to do to put it underneath the slabs. By the time I put it down, time a bit and put the slabs in, the idea of putting another sheet of plastic underneath the house, I just felt that was going to then hold the moisture as well. So basically, I just painted the whole at the bottom of the raft with bituminous paint, the floor. In retrospect, I probably would have just painted the whole thing, top and bottom. As you can see, I only did the bottom, but I think I might as well just have done the whole thing. But obviously, I did the whole of the outside. So that's the idea, is that's going to protect the wood and also hopefully stop the ingress of water up into the building. Time will tell. And that's a bit more of a detail you can see there of the how I painted the wood and the vent you can see on the left there. And also I tried, I'm not sure if it was entirely successful, to put the stainless steel studs. You can see, so the whole thing is kind of sitting up on these studs. But I don't think they were quite deep enough to really make the difference. But the idea being, if you can lift the whole thing up a little bit off the concrete, then it's not going to be pulling the water up. So those are the two measures I did: the bituminous paint, the vents for the airflow, and the studs. Then I started putting in the insulation. So you can see this is 70mm insulation in there, leaving a bit of a gap. Actually, I think this is 50mm insulation. I think maybe I made a mistake there because it's about 75 deep. So yeah, this is 75. This is 50mm insulation, which is then allowing the airflow underneath. In retrospect, I probably should have also put vents in these in the middle. I can't remember what they're called. The things which connect the wood bits together. So that's the floor finished with all the insulation in, the air vents underneath, and then that's the top of the floor is the softwood ply. So in retrospect, I used 1/2 inch, but in retrospect, I really should have used 3/4. I think it's just slightly too much more bounce than I think there should be in a floor. So yeah, I would go for 18mm or 3/4 inch. Softwood next time. But you can see again, I kind of sized it so I didn't have to do too much cutting. So that's just like 2 4-foot by 8-foot boards, and then one of the same boards just with a foot chopped off to give me the 11-foot by 8-foot. One thing I have to watch out for is, although I'm saying 4-foot by 8-foot, that's how I kind of understand it. We're working metric, and it's not exactly 4 and 8-foot. So you've really got to measure the boards or before, so they can just drop on, or otherwise it's not quite 4 or 8-foot. In the meantime, because I knew that's what I needed the floor. In the meantime, I was also working on the frame designs. I used Google SketchUp, just free online. Took a bit of getting used to, and I had done a bit of CAD before, but yeah, I found it really helpful to just properly work out the design in advance for the frame. and well, you can see there, I'll go through each bit, and then it's the roof. So you can see basically there's a floor, there's like a raft, there's 4 frame walls, and then there's a frame roof. That's the front elevation. I decided there's different ways you can do the roof overhang, but I basically decided to use the full length of the wood to then give me the roof overhang. And yeah, that's the side elevations. You can see with the space for the window. Again, I got a second-hand window. That was an even better deal. I'll probably come to that. And I sized it for that window, built it around the window. That is the rear frame. So you can see there's the kind of the 2 posts at each end. That's quite important because that basically gives you something to attach the 4x8 plywood walls, which we'll come to, in each corner. So it's quite important detail that the 2 posts separated by the same width in each corner. And again, I sized the gaps between these verticals to basically so that then the 4 foot by 8 foot boards would just go straight on and be screwed in without having to be cut to fit every size. I also tried to size the gaps between them for the insulation to try and make maximize use of the insulation. That's the front frame there over on the right hand side. This is all made out of 2x4 treated timber. So that's the front frame, kind of upside down over on the far side. So we did the back frame and the front frame first, and then we put those up, and then sort of got them into place and braced them, so in the exactly where we wanted them, and then we built the left side kind of in situ. So we didn't try to make that in advance because there's more angles involved with that. So we just did it where it ended up, so in situ. That was actually Tom's idea, who helped me with the bit of the framing. So that's it. That was a 1 day's work between me and Tom to get the frame built. So the four walls and to get the roof on. The roof just we got it on by sitting the end beams on top of the rails, if you like, along the front and the back, and then putting on the front. I'm forgetting the names for what you call these kind of members, but the front board, and then putting the rafters, I suppose, a lot of which go along down the length of it. So yeah, that was a hard day's work, but a really good day's work, and I think that came together largely because I'd done the CAD design. And so I knew exactly what we needed, and we knew what we were doing. And then Tom had some great machinery and some great skills as well. Then basically we were able to get that all done in a day. That's us. That's us looking proud of our efforts. Bit of quality assurance there from Finlay and Eshin. So basically, so far we've built a climbing frame in the back garden. So the next is you're back on eBay again to try and buy insulation. Insulation is expensive. So I was really keen to find, and I did manage to find some second-hand insulation, not second-hand, but surplus, which people were selling on, which made a big difference. That's my camper van there, which has got a lot of use in this job. I mean, I'm sure you can do it without a van, but it's really useful to have a van for this kind of project. Then, once you kind of built that, you're like, great, and then it started chucking it down with rain. So we had a lot of trouble with heavy rain, trying to protect the totally unprotected, especially soft ply floor from the rain. So that was a bit of a pain. I probably didn't need to, but I decided to put in some diagonal bracing. So you can see there, just to kind of stiffen the whole thing, the diagonals and the corners, just to, hopefully make the whole thing really less liable to sort of rack. I also decided to put in roof vents. So this was a bit after the fact, but I've been kind of reading the same way I'd kind of put the floor vents in. I was reading that really the roof needs ventilation. So I also I took these all off, and then cut these roof vents, and then did it. Hold on, I'm going to tell these chuckleheads to be more quiet. So that's the roof vents. And then more of this softwood ply for the roof. It's just a cheaper ply. So again, I used 1/2 inch for that, which I think is totally fine for the roof. I think. And then we put the roof on. So Nick gave me a hand again. This is the EPDM rubber, which then just goes over, and there's this, there's a method for how you do that with kind of rolling out the deck adhesive and then the solvent adhesive around the side. There's quite a few YouTube videos on that. So yeah, that was good. I mean, we had trouble with rain in the middle of doing that, but it was great to get a roof on it, just to then protect that floor a bit more. So then the next big job is then the wall insulation. So it was getting the wall insulation in, and sort of just a lot of free chopping with a saw, and then kind of hammering it in. And actually, it also stiffened the whole thing up quite a bit, having the insulation in. I then got the breaker back out. So this is another thing forward to the electrics. So I had to basically break, again, a bit more of the patio, and then dig this cable trench and to take in the cable. I did think about doing the building just with solar, but basically because of the heating, because I wanted to use it year round, basically I knew it was going to have mains power, at least for the heating, and then we use it for other things as well, obviously. That's it with the wall insulation largely in. Just a few gaps around the bottom I've left for the cabling, which is and for the plug points, which then kind of happen next. That's the windows in. That's one of the, there's a few tips and a few online videos about I looked at about how you get them in, and what sort of get spaces you leave around the side, how you kind of even them up, and obviously put the glass in and so on. But it was I'd never done it before, but it was really doable, with a bit of care. And yeah, I mean, we again with Tom's help, we'd sized the spaces right so that they went in. That's the key thing. If you get the sizes wrong, or you try and do it before you've got the window, that's when you think you're really in trouble, personally. Because if you get that wrong, then you're in trouble. Hold on, we've got a little visitor out there. Right, so this is now then there's patio door frames. Then they went in at this point as well, just to get them all fitted. And then next is the breather membrane. So this is a particular membrane which allows the building to breathe, but also doesn't allow the ingress of water, which is you also have in roofs and buildings. So this went on with staples. And then this is the cladding. So there's all kinds of cladding options. I think red cedar seems to be the most kind of popular and kind of long-term robust. But I had a friend who is a kind of carpenter and kind of processes wood. So he had this Leylandii cladding, which he gave me at a good price. And then basically Tom and I had to then fit the cladding. It just takes. This took a whole day. This was a day's work. The same day as the electrics went in, you can see there. We did the cladding. We didn't quite manage it. You can see the bit above the door still to be done there. Those little bits. But we got the main bits in, and it was quite a time-consuming job. Getting all the cuts, on the diagonals, and making it all fit. But we got it done. We got that done already. And then basically once the cabling had gone in, as you can see the junction box there on the wall, then we refilled the trench, and then put the doors on. So I ended up actually kind of pulling the frame back into the building a little bit and putting a big bead of sealant around the kind of the inside face of the cladding, and then bringing the cladding back on, bring the frame back onto it to try to improve the seat, make sure there's a good seal around it to try and stop the rain getting in. And then I put the doors back on, which was surprisingly easy actually. And they just kind of sat down onto the pins on those 3 hinge points. So yeah, that was it. Feeling like it was getting there. I just want to highlight that detail. You can see in the bottom left corner of the building, there's that kind of, you can just see a kind of V shape in the cladding. All the cladding is kind of cut back at an angle at the bottom, which was my friend Johnny's suggestion to basically help the water drip off the front rather than kind of pool. So I think that's quite an important detail, to let the water drip rather than for it to just sit and rot the bottom of the cladding. So that's the doors. That's the doors open, and it's starting to feel like we've got the feel of a building. Here's a bit more on the details. And in fact, the settling in as well. So there's so many little details make the difference in these. So you can see the cracking coming up there as the wood was drying. So you just go, that just kind of happens. But also, it might happen a bit less if we put the nail points a bit closer together. You can see the nails are kind of quite towards the edge. That means that as it contracts, there's quite a bigger area over which the wood has to take up the change. So I think that's probably why the cracking was happening. But there's also, you can see there again the cutaway on the cladding. That's finishing the wall insulation. So that was once the kind of the electrics are in, then I could really like finish off the wall insulation. And then I did aluminium tape, which is again it's called the vapor barrier. So you use aluminium tape to cover that. I think because of because there are naturally a bit gaps left, but also the idea is that you're not it's all to do with hot vapor and trying not to have that getting out basically. I think that's right. I'm probably have to check that, but I can't. But I went for basically both the breather membrane and the vapor barrier on the inside on the walls. And then I also had this weather damage, which I know. Then is that because of that heavy rain? Is it because something else is happening? You're always worried that there's some water related thing going on. But I just had to persevere. I wasn't going to lift the floor again. Then the hardwood walls. I decided to go for plywood walls rather than trying to do plasterboard. Mainly on again Johnny's suggestion. This was to do with the fact that the building's going to move, so you're never really going to get plasterboard. Once you can try and sort of skim it, but then it's going to move, so it's going to have cracks on it. So the idea was I just use plywood, and then paint it, and then it would move and that would be okay. And I'll show you what happened to it on the seams later on. But I think it worked out reasonably well. So that was quite a bit of work. Again, it sort of worked quite well because it was sort of sized for the boards, and again the joists and the roof were sort of in decent positions. So yeah, it really helped that Tom had a really good track saw. So we got all that done, and then we also had to do the cover strip. So I went for vertical cladding because I thought it looked nicer, but then you have to do is these kind of cover strips over the gaps between the boards, because it's not horizontal. You can kind of lap them, and so that the water falls off the front. With this, you've got to cover them. So I think I quite like the kind of pinstripe sort of look, and you can see there that we've now finished the little bits along the top. So that's it, more or less. And that's the inside cover, boarded, the outside cover strips on. So you're a lot of the way there at this point. And that was a day's work. So it was 3 days Tom kind of gave me, and we worked together on, which did really chunky bits of the work. So then the painting started. So then I sort of just coats of white, but it worked pretty well. I think you can see the walls here pretty well. The painting going on to the plywood, it sucked up a lot of paint. I wasn't using very high quality paint. I probably could have used a better one, but it took 3 good coats and a big tub. I think it's more absorbent than normal plaster. But yeah, it went on, and it started to look really neat. And more painting. There was an awful lot of painting. Then some furniture came in. This was the first bit of furniture, because I'm also on eBay all the time. Just kind of looking out for when you're ready, can you pick up a bit of furniture that's going to work for cheap? Because otherwise you're spending a lot of money on furniture. So onto the floor. So then, but now the walls are painted, and you can see the kind of the splits there. I decided to leave the chamfer on the edge of all the boards, and then kind of fill in the chamfer, but not try to get it flat, because in the end the boards are always a little bit off in places. So it just looks like there's a kind of a little, quite a neat little groove. So this is the 3-in-1 underlay. So this is the underlay that you need to. The idea is it is providing a tiny bit of insulation and another vapor barrier against water coming up through the floor. So I don't know. Again, you're just throwing a lot of different bits of vapor barrier to try to kind of keep the room dry and keep the heat in. So this was the underlay, 3-in-1 underlay. And I thought this was quite funny how once it went on, suddenly it all looked like a swimming pool underneath. So then this is the oak engineered flooring. I decided to use engineered flooring, which basically means there's a top layer of real wood on top of plywood, essentially. Posh ply, it's also known as. So that went on quite easy, click clack. you know, I got second. I found someone who had extra, which was quite good, but a little bit on the bendy side, so that made it a little bit harder to fit than I think it might have been if I had bought it new, or who you would hope. That was then a nice moment with Sarah, just sitting on the seat that we got and with the floor kind of in, looking really nice. I thought so. So that was nice. This is then, so that's then really that is the building. On the outside now, it's really done. I wasn't planning to treat it anytime soon. You can see the kind of the boarding around there. So yeah, a few more details still to go though. Guttering on the back, so it has a 7-degree slope, which is basically so it gives a bit of a run, but not very much. But yeah, so guttering on the back to stop the splash up, which is really quite an important thing to manage. And then the skirting, so I put skirting board around there, so on top of the flooring. And then there's also an air vent in there on the top, which you can see, which again was all about trying to make sure there's enough ventilation between kind of leaving the window a little bit, on latch kind of thing. And the air vent idea is that we're hopefully not going to have too much moisture building up in here and damp. I started to, I used some of the excess cladding to make some shelves, which I quite enjoyed, and then I got that table, which I think was a good size for the room, not too deep. So I was on eBay. Then we started to, so the ones we already had the power sockets in there. I decided not to put any overhead lights. I just felt like it was going to be, we didn't really need them. So basically, we're using a series of lamps. And we also extended the internet out there. So it was going to be important to have the internet out there. So we used a power line extender, so it kind of plugs into the wall, and uses the cables, which worked really well. So that was that's Sarah doing a podcast right there. So that's the then we got this is towards the end of the summer. This whole thing took probably maybe started in April, finished in September. So that's the kind of duration it took. Mainly weekends, a few days off work. So this is then basically the idea is I wanted to use we use quite a lot of smart plugs and lights just to basically enable us to turn the heating and the lighting on and off from the house if we're trying to get out in the dark or trying to warm it up before we come in here. So that was quite a fun little thing to do. I'd never really used smart devices before, and it really does make sense when you've got when it's separate and you've got the weather in between, so you can kind of as I say, get the building ready before you go out there. And then so that's the building, but then you still got the patio. That was actually I couldn't have this nice new building and have this kind of really broken up old crazy paving. So basically then the job was to do the patio. So here we are again, back with the breaker, lifting all the old slabs, which actually came up super easy. They were just sitting on on sand. And also then I'm sort of protecting the glass. I don't want to then, as I'm breaking it all, then now shatter one of the windows I've just lovingly put in. So this took 2.5 tons of aggregate, so 2.5 ton bags of aggregate to get this done. There's this wheelbarrows full going in. Then my dad on the whacker plate. That was again another important tool really to enable us to get a really solid base. And then I was aligning the process. I got sandstone for this kind of a range of colours, which I quite like, and you'll see in a minute. But so this is the same sort of plan, whack down aggregate, mortar, and then the slabs. I ended up having to use quite a lot of mortar. I think I underestimated how much aggregate you needed to bring the level back up to where you want it. So I probably should have left more again of the kind of rubbly stuff underneath and built the aggregate on top of it. So we ended up using quite a lot. As you can see, quite a thick layer of cement, which then is costing you a bit more. That was again that was a day and a half, weekend to get that bit done. Just the laying of the slabs, and again with a cement mixer. That was quite important. Tool with my dad there. That's edging stone. So then I kind of again on eBay, or no, Facebook Marketplace. I think actually I got a lot of stuff on. Just locally, somebody had these edging stones, which I thought looked nice and would kind of create the edge with this kind of the border. And then grouting. So that was the grouting. Then I decided to just go ahead with a kind of a classic grouting approach of using kind of a mortar. which was looking great. I was really happy with it. And then it started to rain, quite not that long after I put it down, and then it needed basically. I think I didn't put quite enough cement in, or didn't have quite enough time before the rain came down, so it started to kind of break up a little bit. So that was unfortunate. More or less the last job. You can see the line of pebbles there along the edge. So that's basically the whole thing kind of runs away, sort of sloped slightly away from the wee house. Obviously to try and take the water away from it and into that kind of gully of stones there, which then kind of drains. So that was a bit annoying on the grouting, but I think it looks all right. I did I refurbished an office chair, which I may or may not keep in the end, but just because once you've got the space, you then want to fill it with kind of nice things, and then there we are, back to the starting point. So yeah, I'm really happy with how the building's turned out, and time will tell how all the different design features on the managing the moisture and the vapor and all that kind of thing, how it persists, and whether I might end up treating the exterior cladding, because it is softwood, at some point, maybe next year once it's kind of settled in. But yeah, really happy with how it turned out. It was a really fun project to do. It was quite absorbing, sometimes a bit intense. You could worry about different features, and you commit to things, and then you couldn't go back. But yeah, I learned a lot doing it. I'd never built a building this size before, so I'm really happy to have that experience, because also you do a lot with paperwork these days in your work, I do. So it's nice to have that feeling of like more tangible building. But I got a lot of great help. I'll do that in a second. It uses a little interior view, just kind of looking out and back from the building. The curtains, the curtain rail, I had to buy a new one for that to get the right length. Claire gave us the curtains, and then there's a kind of roller blind there. I had to fit on the side window as well. So there's a bit of sort of a thanks to sort of illustrate how many different people have to help. So Sarah, my wife, did lots of patience with me, like working away on this, and also with the children, while I'm working away on this, and helping with different points. You just can't do it yourself. My dad did a lot of great work particularly on the cement mixing and on the base and the patio, which is important. Again, really a two-man job. Tom gave me those 3 days of work on the frame, the cladding, the paneling on the inside, which was really great. And Nick did some great work as well, particularly on helping me excavate all that rubble, filling those skips and the roofing. Tom Fullerton, he was great in terms of helping, because he's got the whacker plate and the cement mixer, and he brought that around. They made a big difference. I wouldn't take this on without a cement mixer. I'd hire one if you can't borrow one. Johnny gave me loads of advice on just some of those details that just kind of make it really work. Give me sort of confidence, and just picking, go for 2x4s. If you don't go for 2x4s for the frame, it's really just not going to be. It's going to be a bit weedy. Things like that, or that cladding detail on the bottom. Those kind of things just really make a difference. So that kind of, if you know someone who knows a bit of that kind of stuff, that can really help. Ivor, who did the electrics, very smooth, very nice. Great to work with Ivor and have him in just a day, just put electrics in. John Ingle helped me as well, but when the other time I needed the cement mixer. Nail gun was a really good. I mainly built the whole thing's mainly done with screws, but the cladding went on with the nail gun, and that made a big difference in terms of the speed of it happening. Claire and Laura helped as well with the curtains and the curtain adjustments when they were not quite the right length. And Finley and Eshin, you saw quite in there, my sons, for all their enthusiasm. They were very enthusiastic about the whole project and kind of seeing it all happen, and it's kind of nice to have that involvement and helping sometimes. So that was good. So that is it. Hope that's been interesting. If you've got any questions or you want more information or anything, just post underneath the video, and I'll see if I can post up information. I've got, for example, the budget, how it all worked out in terms of all the costs of things. I've got a kind of a notes on some of the different, ratios of cement and sand, and the depths, and the kind of just some of the kind of technical details which I used, which may or may not be right, but those are the ones I kind of got from the internet and decided to make they were the right ones. Hope you've enjoyed the video. And it might feel inspired to go and building yourself.